Hello everyone and welcome to ARCUB. I'm Elvira Lupșa. I am the curator of the Art of the Game, which is the exhibition that's invading the entire Hanu Gabroveni. I invite you to see it if you haven't yet. It's an honor to have Lili Ibrahim with us tonight. She's lead artist of Monument Valley, the third installment of the game. And it's one of the tag talks I was most enthused and really curious about. And we also have Gabriel Stancu from Amber, who will will moderate the Q&A after Lili's presentation. Amber worked with, he will tell us a bit more about his work with Lili and with us too, the game studio that developed Monument Valley. So don't hesitate to keep all your questions for the end. I thank Lili for coming to Bucharest to present us her work. And I thank you for your curiosity and for being here. So Lili, it's yours.
Hello. My name is Lili Ibrahim. I'm so excited to be here in Romania for the first time, in Bucharest for the first time, in this beautiful building. I will be talking about Monument Valley, the IP, today, and I'll be showing you loads of really beautiful pictures and talk about behind the scenes, how they were created, the thinking behind them. I don't know how long this presentation is. If it's too long, Elvira, just give a shout or something. Also, I don't normally get a chair when I do these. This is the first time I've been offered a chair, so let's see how it goes while sitting down. But it's so exciting to talk to you about this, and hopefully you enjoy. So I work for a small game studio called Us2 Games. It's based in London, in South London. We are only about 25, 30 people, so it's a small studio. And actually, the studio is called Us2 Games, and it came out of a design studio called Us2. So Us2 do visual designs, advertisement, general design jobs, marketing. And from Us2, a small group of people at that studio decided to try and make video games a long time ago. When could it be? Maybe 15 years ago. And because they were able to create some level of success for themselves, Us2 Games became a sub-studio of Us2. And then in the last few years has become a completely separate company from Us2, so we're no longer under the same umbrella. But Us2 Games, having come from a design studio, I believe that we've held on to a lot of the graphic design sensibilities that come from the design world, and we've brought that into the games industry with us. We are known for making high-quality games that focus on relatable stories and have really beautiful art, in my opinion. And these are some of the games that you might have played or heard of or seen. Monument Valley 2, and the most recent one in the installment, Monument Valley 3, which is the one that Gabby on. So Monument Valley, the original, came out in 2014. The second one came out in 2017, and then the last one was launched 2025. Yes, 2025. And if you have never heard of Monument Valley, or you have never played it, or you don't know anything about it, I will describe it briefly for you. Monument Valley is an atmospheric puzzle game. You travel through dreamlike architectural environments and solve puzzles to unravel a mystery, a story for the characters. It's not a difficult game. Actually, we try to not make it too much of a difficult game. We want it to be a beautiful piece of art, a meditative experience that you can quickly access from your phone in your pocket, or from your PC nowadays. You can play them on all platforms. But it's sort of more of like a meditative experience. When we work on Monument Valley, there are two main pillars that we talk about a lot in the development team. We talk about the interaction, and we talk about the visual art. And when I joined the company to work on Monument Valley 3, I was told that the art team slogan for Monument Valley has always been that every screen is a printable work of art, which is a little bit scary to hear when you start working on a project, that everything you do needs to be a printable work of art. But actually, it means that the art team are really empowered to ensure that they are supported in creating beautiful visuals, and there are no compromises for us. On the interaction side, Monument Valley, the first Monument Valley, when it came out in 2014, it was launched on Apple devices, iPhones and iPads. So it was designed to play perfectly on touch devices. So the interactions are very pleasant, playful, tactile, and they respond to touch very well. And we, even though nowadays Monument Valley can be played on all platforms, we still hold on to this being a very important part of the design process. So here you see the two pillars that are very important to us. And as I said, Monument Valley plays perfectly on touch devices. And if you haven't played it, I'll describe some of the only interactions actually that exist in the game. You can use your finger to rotate things, and you can see how the environment responds to your input. You can use your finger to drag things. So again, it's just direct input. It feels really immediate, your impact on the environment, on the world. And you can tap on things to move the character along the path, and this is how you ultimately solve the puzzles. You manipulate the architecture and you navigate the character. But as I mentioned earlier, every screen in Monument Valley is a printable work of art, and it's particular in these screenshots that I think that you can see our pedigree in graphic design. Monument Valley is a love letter to graphic design, and with each installment we ensure that this remains true. We play a lot with silhouettes. We play with colors, and we combine them so that each screenshot is a playful collaboration between silhouette and color. So stacked on top of this pedigree of graphic design, we also do a lot of work when it comes to researching architecture. And we look at a lot of references from all over the world to find this sense of grand, timeless architecture that can be simplified into almost like an icon in the game. And although we look at specifics, we never want to directly represent places in the world. So with the art team, I often say that we want it to feel like a real place. But it's not like the real place that you went to on your holiday. It's almost like when you dream of a place you visited once, that version of the place. It's vaguely recognizable as a part of the world, but we don't want to do very direct references. And some examples of structures in the game that have had very clear references from the real world. Here's one of the red forts in Delhi. St. Peter's Basilica. We look at details such as cathedral windows. Another one from the last one. This is West African Hausa architecture, and each level in Monument Valley, the artists are actually encouraged to make a decision themselves about what influence they want to bring into the games. So although I might suggest some places to start, every installment of Monument Valley has such a different visual treatment because each artist can choose themselves where they want to reference from. And it doesn't have to be architecture either. This is one from Monument Valley 2, which was inspired by a Mary Blair illustration. So this artist particularly liked this illustrator. We look at classical art as well. The thing with Monument Valley is that if you play a game, you'll play maybe, I don't know, how many levels could there be? Maybe 40, 50 screenshots. But these are the 40 or 50 levels that passed all our checks. We would have made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of levels, and some of them will be completely arted and still binned. So for an artist to continue to come up with new ideas, you start referencing anything that you find in your environment, other designs. You'll be surprised what things you can pull from when you have to create so many different ideas. Someone took inspiration from RuPaul's Drag Race. Ultimately, the final effect of it is that we end up with screenshots that are very graphically pleasing and iconic, and they stem in the real world, architecturally and mood-wise, but they have been treated through this lens of graphic design that has become our trademark. So now you know a little bit about the interaction side of Monument Valley and the art side of Monument Valley. But I think that the really magical moments happen when really tactile interaction and elegant visuals come together and create an optical illusion. And although, as the art lead, I would say that art is the most important part of Monument Valley, actually I think what people remember from playing Monument Valley are the optical illusions. So I will talk a little bit about optical illusions for a bit and show you how we make them. And you cannot talk about optical illusion without talking about M.C. Escher, who is famous for these sort of ink or pencil drawings of impossible architecture. And he's been a huge inspiration for all of the designers and artists who have worked on Monument Valley. And you can see here in some of the levels that we have drawn strongly from his illustrations. This is one that is really captures that illustration quite well. If you play Monument Valley, or next time you play Monument Valley, I want you to keep an eye out for this shape. This shape is the Penrose triangle. It is an impossible triangle. It can't exist in real space, but it can exist in this digital space that we work within. And it's the bread and butter of Monument Valley. Next time you play it, you'll realize that every time something weird happens on your screen, it's actually a Penrose triangle, almost every time. And it works in this way that these anamorphic exhibits work, where it's only legible from one angle. If you see it from any other angle, the illusion breaks. So here's a capture from Unity, from an engine that shows an example of how in Monument Valley we would have created a Penrose triangle. So rotating in 3D space completely breaks the illusion. And then if you rotate it back, it kind of creates this seamless triangle. Another example this is from Monument Valley 2, where you can see that the path that takes the girl up to the door, on the right-hand side you can see what it looks like for the player in the game, and then on the left is what it looks like for the developer who built this level. And in-game, on the right-hand side, the character walks seamlessly across that gap. The programmers have created some magical tools that are beyond my comprehension, but it creates some cool moments. So throughout all of Monument Valley, you will see this shape over and over. Sometimes it will be really obvious, like this one. Or this one as well. They are really clear Penrose triangles. But in other cases, you might think that you see a different type of illusion, but you'll realize actually it's also a Penrose triangle, just slightly hidden in the environment. This one as well is, again, just a slightly different configuration for a Penrose triangle. But there are some other illusions that we also work with. This is another Escher illustration. I don't know what this one is called, this illustration, but the impossible bit is the sort of ladder that goes behind and in front of the building. And it's another illusion that we use in Monument Valley. Building it similarly, if you had rotate, I wish I had added a GIF of this rotating, but in 3D space, it looks really quite strange. But the result from a static camera is really quite, impossible. Another type of illusion that we work with is this mirrored world, where one side is an upside-down version of the other. This is one of my favorite ones from the recent game, where the upside-down tower merges into the right way up tower, I guess, and creates a new structure. And then this illustration by Escher is called Convex and Concave. And at first glance, it looks a little bit like the same illusion, the upside-down one. But it's really hard to describe this one. But if you look at the right-hand side and compare it to the left-hand side, it's almost like the left-hand side is inside out. On the Monument Valley team, we call this multi-stable, and this is my best way of trying to simplify it. If you imagine a cube, you could imagine that there is like a top of a cube, but due to the perspective of the game, it could also be a hollow cube. And this specific illusion or optical trick can be used to create levels where it looks like you are inside something, but you could also be on top of it at the same time. We don't actually have that many of these illusions in Monument Valley because they are really, really difficult to work with. You think it looks confusing, just looking at this video. It's equally as confusing to work with it, and we try to avoid it. Well, I try to avoid it. But the shame is that it is a really cool effect, so people always want more of them. There are some other illusions that we use occasionally. This on the left is an n-sided object. It's an object that you can continue rotating more than is physically possible. And then the looping GIF, which is the one at the start of this presentation, just endlessly loops. But the challenge of Monument Valley development is how do you come up with more new tricks to surprise and please the players. And it was really hard in Monument Valley 3. Even at that point, we started feeling that like maybe the box of tricks is starting to get empty. So whoever works on the next Monument Valley is going to have a tricky time. Monument Valley 1, the first one, won over 20 awards and has more than 150 million worldwide downloads. And it completely changed the trajectory of the studio, afforded us a platform and a fan base and opportunities that we didn't expect. And through that journey, we've started exploring what that means for us as developers to have that privilege. Which takes me to Monument Valley 3. I've already shown you a bunch of Monument Valley 3 things, but because this is the project that I worked on the most, I will spend a little bit more time talking specifically about this. The development for Monument Valley 3 started in 2021, and it was released. Was it really 2025? 24? It was December 2024. I'm so glad that Gabby is here to correct me. I need to change my slides. I've been lying to people. And by the time we started working on Monument Valley 3, so between Monument Valley 2 and Monument Valley 3, Monument Valley 2 came out in 2017, so that's 4 years. A lot of things changed in the studio. Not only had there been a global pandemic had begun, but we released so many games in between. The one we released before Monument Valley 3, Alba, A Wildlife Adventure, is actually one that really changed a lot of how we as developers think about game development. Alba created a shift in the way that we were thinking about our platform. And if you haven't played Alba, A Wildlife Adventure, it's a game about a girl who discovers her love for animals and wildlife. And it was when it started. This is not going to be a presentation about Alba, but I need to talk about Alba a bit. When we started working on Alba, it was a game about taking pictures of birds. It was a birding game. Is that what it's called? People who are really enthusiastic about taking photos of birds. We were going to make a love letter to this community because we have people in the studio who are really enthusiastic about birds. So it started off being a game about taking a picture of birds. And as it developed, and we developed a story, and we were thinking about how to position it, we realized that it's actually a game about the environment and about taking care of the environment and taking care of the wildlife and biodiversity, etc., etc. So we made Alba. Everyone started feeling really fired up about this. We launched it with a campaign that every download of Alba, we were going to plant a tree. And a year from launching Alba, we had planted 1 million trees. So we were like, we can make a difference as a studio. So we became a certified B Corp, and we joined Playing for the Planet, the UN initiative. And we did an update for Monument Valley 2, which was all about forests and forest preservation. And then we started working on Monument Valley 3. So we had like a little bit... bear with me, it's relevant. We had a little bit of like a momentum thinking about how do we pay back to the world with the work that we do. And then we started development on Monument Valley 3. So this was the first, the leads at the beginning of the project. It's me when I was young and my lovely colleagues. it's a real mix of people from different countries, from different backgrounds. And the interesting observation is none of these people in this photo studied games. We all studied different things. I studied illustration and animation. Emily studied some sort of science. John studied philosophy. No idea what to do with a philosophy degree. Apparently become a game developer. Jennifer studied literature. Manish studied music, technology or something like that. Anyway, no one studied games. To be honest, when we were at university age, there were no courses that did games anyway. But no one studied games, but we've all come from different paths in life. We're parents, we are climate activists, we are refugees, we are just from all over the world, and we've met at this point in our life, and we're going to make a game. And at the beginning of the project, we were talking about what do we want this game to be about. So we created some early pillars for what we wanted to say, what we wanted to bring out in the world, and we settled on community, migration, and climate. And the game, when it came out, is about that a little bit. The story in Monument Valley 3 is about Noor, the lighthouse keeper, who goes on a journey to find a balance between nature and city. And I'm going to break down the journey of some of the visual development for this. We started off playing Monument Valley 1 and 2 over and over and over and over again. We all loved Monument Valley when we started working on this, but by the time you play Monument Valley for like the 10th time, it's like it can become quite... All I saw were these tall towers over and over again. So when the game director at the start said, explore whatever you want, the first thing I wanted to do was just no more towers. Like I will not look at another tower again. And I started wondering about, we're talking about community, we're talking about people. What would Monument Valley be if we looked at more domestic settings? Or more community settings, maybe? Not these like empty, cold structures. Some early concept art, I was imagining like a little, I don't know, town, hub, with characters. Some of these silhouettes you will see in the game still, I think. Again, maybe it's a city, just a place for people to come together. It doesn't have to be so lonely. Maybe people talk to each other. I was really excited about this triangle character, and it made it to the game. Like, I think maybe I shoehorned it. Like, every time we were making a character, I was like, triangle, make it a triangle. So apart from smaller scale architecture, I also got a little bit obsessed with I just wanted to take a hammer and break all the towers. So I started looking. And you know what happened, actually, is that I went to this exhibition at Tate Britain, with Cornelia Parker, and this was in the main room. It's I think the exhibit is called, or this particular piece of art is called Exploded Shed. And it's a shed that was exploded, and then all the pieces are hanging in midair. You can just walk around it and look at everything suspended in midair. And this was maybe the first month of development of Monument Valley 3. And I was like, yeah, I just want to see this in the game. Not only does it feel like I'm deconstructing it, but there's something quite satisfying and graphic about it. So it became one of my pillars early on as well. And then the last thing that I felt strong about was, why does it have to have so many sharp edges and straight lines? Can we add something organic to it? If it is a game about climate and city versus nature, do we not want nature in there? Let's bring some nature, some softness. I did some concept art. These are some paint overs of Monument Valley 2 screenshots. What I also really like about this is that, as I said earlier in the presentation, Monument Valley's pedigree is graphic design. And when it came out, I think it made a big splash because in 2014, when the Monument Valley, the first one, came out, it captured what graphic design meant at the time, what felt exciting at the time. And it felt like such a strange thing to, 10 years later, not try to look at graphic design today and try to infuse it with what are designers doing today, what are people looking at today. Let's try and bring that into the into the game that claims to be the graphic design game. So I looked at stuff that I found pleasing and exciting. And a lot of collage, a lot of softness, a lot of like combining materials. So yeah, a lot of different things. A few slides just showing the outcome of me setting these pillars, those 3 pillars. So here are some experiments from the team where they are breaking things apart, like that exploded shed. The one on the right was an artist doing a little rotating toy. The one on the left is a programming toy. Programmers love this sort of stuff. Like, I think that it makes them feel like artists. Everyone wants to be an artist. No, but it's really fun to give people something just like a mood board and then see what they come up with. Some more exploding stuff, and some sort of like soft organic shapes. I think it's meant to be like a conversation between it didn't make it into the game. Another exploded shed. You can see there's a lot of exploded sheds in the early development, and some organic like 2D strokes. I'm actually really sad that didn't make it to the game. Anyway, some screenshots from the actual game. You will see some communities, some people like stretching, reading books, sweeping. Just characters that exist on the architecture as you play through the levels. This never happened in Monument Valley before, so it felt really exciting. The hub is a place that slowly grows in population, and you get to know your little inhabitants. People just coming together in this space. And you'll see a lot of exploding sheds. This is a personal favorite. But also just general deconstructed, exciting visuals that feel graphic. Here's something that has the bones of exploding sheds, but it also has these like organic shapes that feel a little bit like the posters that I had been looking at. And in terms of organicness, we decided to bring in organic, soft 2D shapes and have it represent nature. So you see here what is quite traditional, tall Monument Valley tower, and we've just covered it with this plant that hugs it. There's quite a few examples of us trying to get that softness to contrast against the structures in the game. And the final moment of Nor connecting with nature. So yeah, thank you very much. That's all I've got to share with you today. It's been a while since I looked at these screenshots actually, so it's been a treat for me to go down memory lane as well.
Thank you so much, Lili. It's fantastic. We'll open the floor to question and invite Gabriel Stancu also to join us. He's from Amber Studio, which is the most prominent and successful Romanian-born studio globally. And I'm glad to say that they were part of Monument Valley's journey last year. So you will tell us a bit more about that too.
Can we give another big round of applause for Lili, please?
Thank you, thank you.
That was very interesting. Is it on?
I think it's on, yeah.
I think it's on. I think it's on. How about we do this? We take some questions from my little black notebook.
Yeah.
And then we take some questions from the audience.
Well, for this section, you're the boss, so
Yeah.
you decide.
That makes me feel good. I think first question is, you didn't study games. Most of us haven't studied games. Game development as curriculum is only just now emerging. So when did you know that you wanted to become a game artist? And what led you there? Kind of like walk us through the series of events.
Getting into games.
Games.
I think luckily, actually, when I grew up in the 90s, girls didn't play games. But I had a little brother, and he had a PlayStation. So I was playing games with my little brother and slowly normalized this. And so for me, like, it's always been in my life, video games. But I decided not to study games. Well, actually, it wasn't a decision not to study games. I knew I was going to study art. So I went into art knowing that I wanted to do art, independently of whatever the medium was. And I actually thought that I was going to work in films. I did a summer placement in some VFX studio in London. The films industry is very different, and it's also is quite difficult in different ways. But in the end, I kind of just, on a banana peel, slipped into the games industry. I was looking for work. I had a friend who worked at a studio looking for an artist, and I applied. But it was very conscious for me to study art as a general form, and everything, and I'm very grateful for that, to be honest, because everything I brought into the games industry and all the sensibilities for the craft and for the visual language and graphic design, I have because I didn't study games, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is part of us2's DNA. I would argue, and we'll get into this, but I would argue that diversity is one of your strengths.
I
right?
think massively so. I've been at us2 Games for coming up to 6 years now. I have sat through many interviews. I have interviewed and hired myself many times. I have so many questions that I would ask someone interviewing at us2 Games, but I would never ask them, what game do you play? Because I don't care what games people play. It's not of interest to me because I don't want to make those games. I want to know, what do you do away from screens? What galleries do you go to? What do you look at? What motivates you? That's why we ended up with Alba being a game about bird watching. You know, we had people who love bird watching. And I think it's just really, really important to spend time in this world so that you can make games that speak to people who live in this world.
Do you think Monument Valley wouldn't have happened if it were made by? What comes to mind is if it were made by gamers, but then we're all gamers. But it is one of those games that doesn't feel like a traditional game, and I would assume that this is one of the reasons why not the games you play are so important to you. Is that the knack?
I think so, yeah. And especially, I mean, nowadays, if you open the App Store, if you look at Steam or look at the games landscape, actually a lot of games look a little bit like Monument Valley or similar to Monument Valley. But in 2014, when Monument Valley came out, there was nothing that looked like Monument Valley. If you opened the App Store in 2014, you would find like that app where you like tilt the phone to drink a beer, like, and like, I don't know, like there was like just not, it was completely, you know, that was the landscape. And games were on big screens, and so something that was designed for a handheld device for a small scale, and something that was designed for honestly probably like the Apple audience, which is a design audience, by a studio who does design, graphic design. It's the obvious game that came out of that context, and it would never have come out of a game studio at that time. Today, it might come out of a game studio because games are very varied, and I'm not saying that Monument Valley made that big change at that a decade ago, but it definitely contributed to this idea that people care about what they look at, and games can look different from each other, just the same way as films can look different.
Let's stay on this for just a bit more, because everything that surrounds us has an influence on us, right? And what caught my attention earlier on was the picture of the leads in the beginning, and as I gotten to know you, I realized that you are a very diverse bunch. But also you share some things. Like I know everyone over there is passionate about community. I know John is crazy about Hope Punk. You are very passionate about graphical design. What would you say is this the common thread of the team? Is this the magic that brings everything together? Are those pillars that you put on the screen when it comes to the values of Monument Valley, are those the things that brought you together? Is it the craft that brings you together? What is your magic sauce? You've been there for 6 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. It's possible that it was easier to answer 6 years ago than it is now for me. Partly because now I'm so close to it, but also things change every year. The industry changes, the studio changes. I wonder if what brought me to Us Two Games 6 years ago would be the same thing that brings someone to Us Two Games today. I'm not entirely sure, but what I would say is that we do look for people who are passionate, and nowadays we don't do this anymore, but we used to have in all of the internal Us Two Games slides, whenever the leadership would make a presentation for us, there used to be like a quote that we don't use anymore, and I don't know why, but it used to say that we made it's games made by humans for humans, or something like that. I don't know. I think that at some point we were like, what does it even mean? And then we removed it. But I think in essence it might actually be the thing that summarizes the people as to games. We are just humans, and we want to make games for humans. And by humans, I mean everyone. We used to say that Monument Valley is the one game that if I am out in the wild and I talk to friends who are not in the games industry, or family who are not in the games industry, which is, all of them, some of them will have played Monument Valley. No one will have played Call of Duty but some people who have never touched a game and would not call themselves gamers, they will have played Monument Valley. So we feel with Monument Valley that we've made a game for everyone. Everyone and their grandmother and the dog can play Monument Valley because it's so easy to pick up, and it's so pleasant to look at, and it's so relaxing to be invited to that world. We all have this craving of creating that space that everyone is welcome to step into.
Games made by humans for humans.
You can't say that for that much longer, I think. It's not going to...
I mean, we'll see. I still think games, but in general, things made by humans are the best. You want to take some? Want to take some questions from the audience?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me help you there, sir.
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. 2 questions. First one, what would you like to see in the next episode of Monument Valley in terms of, I know, design, puzzles, story? And the second question, as a graphics person, what are your thoughts on the evolution of graphics and software since the first version? So going from skeuomorphism to flat design to neomorphism and like digital brutalism, there have been a lot of periods since 2014.
And I've already forgotten the first question. Sorry. The first one was, Gabby, what's the first question?
The first question was, if I remember correctly,
the next Monument Valley,
next Monument
cool.
Valley.
Thank you.
And good luck with the next Monument Valley.
Yeah.
After seeing, like, if you guys have played Monument Valley 3, sorry, I have to say this.
Yeah.
I have to say this. But if you haven't played Monument Valley, you should not play it before playing the others, because you won't have fun with the others. If you play Monument Valley 3 first, then you'll be like, I just want to, I think it's one of the best Monument Valleys. Thank
you. And yeah, probably if you intend to play all of them, start from the start. What I would love to see going forward is something completely different. Because although we feel like we made a lot of changes to the format for Monument Valley 3, we pushed things as much as we felt was possible. Like if you look at the 3 of them, they have quite a lot of overlapping similarities. So I'm hoping that whoever takes on the challenge next just completely breaks free of I don't know, make a first person, make a 3D camera, make like whatever feels possible. Just don't hold on to things anymore, I would say. I think it might actually need it next. And for your second question, which is about how I feel about graphic, that one is a really hard question, actually. But what I love about graphic designers and graphic design is that in Monument Valley we have the slogan of the game is that internally, at least, is that the game is all about surprise and delight. We want to surprise over and over, and we want every new level to be a new surprise. It's like opening a box and not knowing what you get. And I think graphic designers are really good at this. Often in game design, I can feel like game developers can be a little bit like they want to emulate something, or this game I played when I was X years old, or the game I played last week, or the one I played last year. There's always this sense of like I want to recreate something, and I don't get the same sense from the graphic design industry. It's always what's next, what's new, how can I surprise with something fresh, with something that hasn't been seen before. It's pushing boundaries, and often it does call back to retro styles and visuals, but often in a clever way. As a graphic designer, I think it's very rare to get street cred by recreating something from last year. But in games, it's not uncommon at all to recreate something from last year. So I've forgotten the question, but if I remember the question correctly, what I'm excited about, to me, it's that every time I see something that feels fresh and it's completely independent of any tools. I don't care about tools. Yeah, that's exciting to me.
So I have a follow-up to that, which is there an artist, or is there some artists or some things? You mentioned you mentioned the exploded shed installation at Tate. Is there some other artists or pieces of art that were influential to you? Maybe you were looking back and you're like, oh, this like when I see the tower with the plant go around it, I immediately think Matisse. With that one.
Matisse was actually a really big influence. And actually, I think when I was working with your artists as well, a lot of the mood boards would have shown the shape language of Matisse cutouts as ways to suggest a direction for how to treat the organic shapes. So Matisse was a big one. This it's really hard off the top of my head actually, but Cornelia Parker having a show on in London when we started had a big impact. But London has so many shows all the time, and actually every month I would go to a few just to see what was out there. And thanks for answering the question for me. Matisse is a good one.
Whenever I get to London, I feel like I can probably spend days just at the National Galleries, sit and look at things. And they refresh that every now and then, and it's so good.
I mean, they always have something seasonal on.
Yeah. Is there things, I remember you mentioning something during the game development. It wasn't necessarily a post-mortem, but you guys were kind of looking back as a team when I visited you in London. And I remember you mentioning something, which is some of the things that you had worked on in the beginning found their way back, even though you said, no, this is not it, I want to explore more. Can you give us a bit of insight on what some of those things that you tried to bury deep and then they creeped back up were?
I actually remember this conversation completely, but I don't remember what we were talking about. But I mean, so during the presentation, I was showing the sort of mood boards early on. Those mood boards would have been made the first month of development, and you can clearly see the imprint it had in the final screenshot. So that's some examples. But I also remember from the story, being that you have this lighthouse that you light with every chapter, and people come together around your lighthouse. I think that was actually our first ever build, which happened maybe like a month or 2 months into development, had a lighthouse that you would light up with your lantern, and then we completely moved on. And then 3 years later, all of a sudden, there's a lighthouse, and you light it up with your wand. And it was probably when we did the post-mortem, or when we were trying to look back to see look for old material just to be able to present it to the studio as a look where we started and look where we are now. That we found this GIF of this character lighting a lighthouse, and I was like, this is the first GIF I took from development. It took us 4 years to circle back to the same idea. What have we been doing, really? And there were quite a few moments like that. Sometimes your first idea is your best idea.
I agree with that. And I'm curious, just to stay on the gentleman's question just a bit more, because graphic design is such a big influence on Monument Valley, and in my opinion, it makes it fresh. Because I could argue that Monument Valley 1 and Monument Valley 2 are not that different. Obviously beautiful games, but then the graphic design bit that you brought to this was just made everything fresh. And I said this before, and I will say it again. And then the stab that you took at just breaking everything down, deconstructive, it's a deconstructivist game in some ways. Was this from the beginning, or did you know you wanted? Because I would argue that this is one of the big things that you've added to the legacy as an art director. Is this something that you knew you wanted? Did it come natural from your background?
It did. It was really early on that I wanted, and that is one actually that we really struggled with. I really wanted to represent these exploding sheds, and I would say for maybe 80% of development, I really failed at convincing people that it was a good idea. Or whenever we tried, we couldn't pull it off. It would just become like a little toy that wasn't interactive or wasn't conductive to a puzzle. So actually, by the time we finished the project, I actually felt like I had failed at bringing this aspect to the game, because I felt like I was constantly chasing this. And it's not until maybe now, like a year or so later, where when I show you guys screenshots and stuff, where I'm like, actually, I think it is in there, in bits and pieces, but So yeah, I am happy they made it in.
It should be. It looks amazing, and I think it's interesting that a big it shows, right. Your background shows in what the game art is. Do you want to take another question from the audience? I have 2 questions from the audience.
Let's take them both.
I have a question that's a bit more technical. I was wondering, as a designer, how was the process of you interacting with actually building the levels you designed, or did you not interact with that side of actual technical building? And also, as a second point, I was wondering if you could tell us more about how some of these illusions are implemented, specifically the multi-stable one, I think you called it, and how they all fit together so seamlessly.
Okay, so for the technical side, there's 2 parts of the technical side. One is, are the artists in engine and implementing stuff? The answer is yes. All the artists are completely fluent in Unity, and they do everything in engine. They are very technical. We don't have any team members who don't work in the game themselves, and that goes for every discipline. I've worked actually for Alba. We had a UI artist who did everything outside of Unity, and then I guess a programmer would implement it. But on Monument Valley, the UI artist was in engine, everyone was in engine. But it's actually beyond that for Monument Valley, because the puzzles, the actual game design, the puzzle design, was often suggested by artists as well, and other disciplines. The game depends so much on creating surprises and interactions that feel fresh and cool. So to make it as possible as possible, we encourage everyone on the team during early development to come up with puzzles or tricks or toys or any sort of interactions. We have programmers, artists, obviously the designers, even producers sometimes. Like, anyone can just get an engine, make something. And it doesn't have to be good, it doesn't have to be finished, it doesn't have to be beautiful, but sometimes it can spark an idea. So many of the puzzles in the game will stem from an experiment that a programmer made or an experiment that an artist did. And part of that is the reason I think we have such varied content, but it's also just the way that we work at Us2 Games. It's small teams, and we are quite generous pre-production, where there's plenty of time for anyone to experiment in different ways. So we're lucky for that we have that studio culture, but it also benefits the game a lot. And there was the second question, wasn't there? Multi-stable. Multi-stable is actually, it's really hard to make. And one of the reasons is because we don't actually have very good tools to make it. Every time we make a multi-stable puzzle, in case anyone forgot the multi-stable, it's going to take ages. Do you want to find the multi-stable one? Every time... it's that one. We make a multi-stable puzzle. It's almost a hack. We almost have to break the game break the system to allow, these ones, to allow this to happen. It doesn't come, a lot of the tools we make everything using our custom tools in Unity. So building these blocks and building these Penrose triangles are really easy because the programmers have given us tools to do this. But multi-stable is still not a natural part of the system, so we have to work around it. Often, multi-stable has a completely second tower in front of the tower that is completely invisible, but where the floor is upside down. And we swap which floor the character stands on. So sometimes they stand on the visible floor and sometimes they stand on an invisible upside down floor, which is in a complicated level with loads of pieces moving and rotating. And we have rotating invisible stuff in front of rotating visible stuff. You can imagine that it gets complicated.
Since we're on the technical part, is there something that you really wish you had throughout the development? Something that if you could wave a magic wand was not there? Yeah,
there is actually a thing that in the end we almost had. And we actually do more or less have. And if I go back to maybe this one, I don't know. When we started working on Monument Valley 3, I really was hoping for us to upgrade some of the visual fidelity. It felt like it's been 6 years, surely the technology has moved on a lot, we can do some really cool stuff. And one thing that me and the programmer got really, maybe like a bit too obsessed around was that we wanted dynamic AO. I don't know who here is a game developer who cares about this, but AO is essentially the shadow between objects. When two things come together, there's a shadow between them. It gets darker. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but actually it's quite expensive, and it's really hard to do it on like an old mobile phone might not have enough strength to do something like this. And it's one of the reasons why Monument Valley has never had this dynamic AO, is because it's too expensive. But I was like, it's 2021 at the time. Like we can do this now, right? And me and the programmer went on this mission. We hired an incredible graphics programmer whose full-time job was to create dynamic AO. But the problem is that not only did we want dynamic AO, it actually had to work in impossible space as well. So not only is it dynamic, it needs to be impossible. It's maybe, I don't know if you can tell from this video, but it has dynamic AO. So we made it, but it doesn't come straight out of the box as easily as I wanted it to. So most levels actually require quite a lot of work from the artist to manually adjust to hide impossible seams. So if I could wave a wand, it would be to have the dynamic AO actually do what we dreamed of.
Monument Valley 4?
Yeah.
How are we doing on time, Vira? Can we do one question from the audience and then I have a final closing question? Yeah? Brilliant. Okay, we'll go to the gentleman over there.
Hi. You've mentioned how important it was to bring something new every time, to change every time. So I feel like this question is even more important after that. How did you go about finding a balance between art and sending a message? Between, wow, this is so cool to look at, and I believe this is important for people to understand. And I'm also curious if there was a big difference in this whole process between the initial drawing board phase and production.
Is this new? Okay, it's working.
It's working.
So the first question, Gabby, what was it?
The first question is, I don't know, but we can ask the gentleman to repeat it.
Can you repeat it just like over?
How do you find the balance?
Balance.
Art and the message?
Message, yeah, okay. That's a really good question. Sorry, I don't know why I'm such a goldfish today, but I actually do quite a lot of talks at events where that encourage games to promote messages, often about the environment. And I meet a lot of developers who really want to share their passion for a cause with the games. Alba, the game that I mentioned previously about this girl and the birds and the photos, has become a little bit of a poster child for a good example of a game that brings a message into the game world. The thing about Alba is, as I mentioned to you earlier, it was just a game about taking photos of birds. It had nothing to do with a message early on. And we just focused on making a good game. And it is really important that first and foremost it's a good game. And that it looks nice, and that it plays well, and that people enjoy it. And to us, maybe because of Alba, or maybe because of us starting off making games without maybe consciously thinking about messaging, making a good game comes first. And often what we find is that if you have an idea at the back of your head, it will slowly ingrain itself in the way you do it. And like with the story and with the mechanics, you can definitely shift it towards the message that you want to say. But I would say that it needs to be a good game first. And in a way, the lucky thing about Monument Valley is that we're not starting from scratch. It is a sequel to a game that has a well-known format, and we're building on an existing format, and it's easier for us to take an existing format and think about how would we say something with this format. It would be completely different if we started from scratch like we did with Alba, and whatever we do next, we'll probably have to figure out what the balance is, as you asked, but without having already an existing game to reference. So I would say for Monument Valley, it's a little bit hard to answer because there's so much already in the game that we could draw from previous games. And was there a second question?
More or less. I asked if there's a big difference between how this balance looks like in the drawing board phase of the project and the production phase, between the brainstorming phase and
Right, this same balance.
oh yes,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that early on there's whenever we would ideate on how to do the messaging, we might have come up with illustrations or storyboards that will never have made it to the end. So I can barely even recall off the top of my head. But yeah, there will be storyboards, there will be like storylines that would never have made it till then. But I would say that that's the case for any game that you work on or any project that you work on. Whatever you do at the start won't make it till the end. So it's not unique in this environment either.
Thank you. That was. It kind of ties into my question that I had, which was how much, like, where do you draw the line between making games and also having this very important part of Monument Valley, which is the messaging, and then there's another part of Monument Valley, which is giving back. You mentioned that this is part of your studio's culture, which is giving back. And you guys donated a large amount of, and maybe this is something that people don't talk about enough. Us too is donating a large part of the revenue that comes from Monument Valley this time around to the Red Cross. But then this is something that you had done with the forest add-on and everything else. You want to speak a bit about that?
Yeah, so it really did begin with Alba, where for every download we planted a tree. We decided at that point that with every project from then on, we want to have a message, but also tie it to a charity that is relevant to the message. And with Monument Valley 3 being about migration and climate, we collaborated then with the International Federation of the Red Cross to support families who are displaced due to climate disasters. And so I think it is 3% of our revenue goes to the Red Cross for this cause. And it's true, it's something that we don't talk about, and I've completely forgot to add it to the presentation. But it's something that is almost, within the studio, we almost take it for granted. It has to be part of the work we do, and it's, as I said, part of this sort of privilege of our position.
It's also amazing making human games for humans. I think we can close on that. And Lili, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you for making the time to take us through one of the most beautiful games in the world, I would argue. I wanted to ask, what do you want to do next? Before we close, what do you want to do next? I think it's kind of hard to think about what's next after working on such a title.
It is, and I think that something will come next. And I actually don't think so much about it. I just try to just absorb new things and see what comes my way. And I'm just hoping that whatever I do next, I can bring something fresh into it. And I was saying to Gabby earlier that I have this sort of work damage from working on Monument Valley for so many years now that wherever I go, I look up first. I look at the buildings first, just to see what am I surrounded with. And being here since yesterday and looking at the architecture here in Bucharest, it's been a real treat. So maybe some of Bucharest will make it into whatever I do next.
Lili, thank you. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for your questions.
Big applause.